Yo, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to this week's episode of Can I Kick It FC. I'm your host, as always, Elliot Barr, and joining me is a man that is just as excited as me to talk about the tournament of the culture, the one that has pissed off Europeans that we don't care about because we celebrate culture over here. It's AFCON. It's Shanir. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. It's going to be weird watching a lot of those European leagues with all the frustration of all the players missing at AFCON and the Asian Cup. So I don't care because AFCON, there's always some fireworks at AFCON. There's always some craziness that goes on. So I'm here for it.
Right, 100%, man. And just to speak to that, like, of course, a lot on social media and stuff, I've seen a few European writers and whatnot kind of frame this tournament. Is not looking at it as like what's the benefits that are going to come out of AFCON, or like what's the good things that are going to come out of AFCON, like how they would for like a Euros or a World Cup or even a Gold Cup. It's more so of these big players are missing. How would these impact the European teams? How would it impact European teams going forward? Looking at African players. And it's just like, yo, like AFCON and Asia does not have to revolve their football tournaments around Europe. Like, they just don't. And that's where I stand with it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues is climate issues. Because when you look at the other major continental tournaments, they can afford to happen during the summer. Mm-hmm. Most of Africa cannot afford to be having soccer games out in that heat during the summer, and the same with Asia. A lot of Asia is in the Middle East, and you try and have a game in the. That's the reason why Qatar's World Cup was in the winter. So, at the end of the day, the Europeans are just going to have to face the music with regard to that. Now, there are a lot of clubs that I think, since this is something that happens fairly often, I mean, not fairly often, but this is something that is part of the game. There are certain clubs that may shy away from acquiring African players or acquiring Asian players because especially top name players, because they're thinking, okay, if we're relying on this guy to get us through, a lot of times seasons can turn in January. You know, a team season can go from you're out of the running for Champions League to you're in the title race or the other way around. So it just comes with the territory. At the end of the day, we live on a round sphere where weather is different at different times of the year for different people, and we're just going to have to deal with it.
Right. And the main reason why they, like you said, like alluded to, like the main reason why they switched this tournament from the summer where it was supposed to be, because if we go back to when they had it, I believe it was in Cameroon in 2021, they switched it because of the rain season. This time it comes to Ivory Coast. They realize, like, hey, look, we can't play this during the tournament because if we do, we will get flooded out at every stadium. Like, there's no way we can play this. So they're like, all right, let's switch it to the summer. We switch it to the winter. I think when it gets back on track, I want to say 2025 is Morocco, if I'm not mistaken. And there they'll be back during the summer. But for this tournament, it's in the winter for this reason, which I personally don't mind. Like, I actually kind of like this. I don't like the amount of football that all footballs are playing. That's a whole different issue for a whole nother day. But I love the fact that I love the fact that Ivory Coast is hosting it, and there's a lot of history in this tournament. So let's start off with the history of it, right? So the history of AFCON, it was first held in 1957. You only had 4 teams. You had South Africa, Egypt. Gosh, now I'm blanking. Blah blah blah. All right, so now I remember. The 4 teams were Egypt, Ethiopia, Sudan, and South Africa. Those are the 4 teams. Started in 1957. Shanair, I'm going to ask you this question, sir. Who do you think is the most successful team in AFCON history?
Who? I would say. I know I'm probably gonna be wrong, but I think this would probably be more so recency bias. Either Cameroon or Nigeria.
You're close. You're close. Cameroon is in that list. They've won the second most AFCON titles. Egypt has won seven AFCONs. Third on that list is Ghana.
The thing that is crazy about this, and it shows you like the ebbs and flows of the talent pool on the African continent. Because in terms of our generation, when you look at the past, let's say 20 years, you'd be hard pressed to name a world-class Egyptian player apart from Mohamed Salah. But you look at the Nigeria, the Senegal, the Ghana, the Cameroon, you're looking at, I mean, I could name some off the top of my head: Okocha, Asamoah Gyan, the Ayew brothers, Eto, Mane, but there aren't that many that come from Egypt. So it's really crazy how the ebbs and flows. But then right now we're going through a period where Nigeria hadn't been doing that well for quite a while.
Yeah, no. So this is and I can't even claim to know this fact, right? Because African football is something that I really want to get more into and learn more about. So I've been, I love listening to podcasts. So I came across this podcast. He was on the Total Soccer Show. His name is Maurice Myers, I believe. If I misquoted, I'll put it down in the description notes so I can link it to his podcast because it's amazing. It's called African Five-A-Side, right? And pretty much what he did is, so you know how Total Soccer Show does like the group breakdowns of like every team in the tournament? What he did was he talked to a journalist that is covering each team in the African Cup of Nations in like 15 to 25-minute podcast. My apologies. So I was listening to this podcast and I was really listening to the Egypt episode. And they were talking about how the reason why Egypt has been so dominant at AFCON is because, and the reason why, like Shanair, you just alluded to, why we don't hear so much about their like stars that plays outside of Mohamed Salah. Before him, you didn't really hear a lot about Egyptian players on the world stage. Is because Egyptian players didn't have to leave Egypt. Like Egypt is quote unquote, besides South Africa, is maybe like the number 2 league or number 1 league, depending on how you look at it, of world recognition in Africa, right? Like we're talking about big clubs that are mainly like the big clubs in Cairo and whatnot. And those are the teams that dominated AFCON because they were mostly built out of those teams. So like I said, they won 7 cups. Egypt, Cameroon, Ghana have the most titles in AFCON history. Ghana has 4. Cameroon has 5. Cameroon last won in 2017 when they hosted in 2021. Also, Shanair, this is a cool fact. So I found this out. This is the first tournament which there are no debut teams. So everyone who's been in this tournament has been here before. There's no new teams in this tournament.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's kind of like cool.
That's saying something because I think a lot of people may not realize that there are quite a few countries on the African continent. There are a lot of countries on the African continent. There are a lot that a lot of people probably don't know about. But to see that this is the first time that there has not been a new country coming into it that has never been in it before, that goes to show, again, it goes back to the what I was talking about with the ebbs and flows of the talent pools all around the African continent, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah, no, it is. So you have no new debuting teams in this tournament. Also, okay, so I got another trivia question for you, Shanir. How many bronze medals have Nigeria won?
I know that I'm gonna have a lot of my Nigerian friends who are gonna be mad.
They probably don't want you to know this, so don't be mad.
They're gonna be mad at me about saying this because they've choked too many times. There have been a lot of times that they've been the favorites and they've just choked. I want to say probably 6 or 7 times.
You're close.
8 times. 8 times third place.
They have finished bronze. Not even runners up. They have finished bronze. So that shows you, like, this Nigeria team, like, I always feel like the teams that are Africa that we always, and for good reason, like, we always look to and be like, all right, like, we're going to talk about today's episode about AFCON, and like, who do we expect to win the tournament? And I always feel like we throw Nigeria, Cameroon, Ghana in that mix, right? They're somewhere there.
Yeah.
And when you look at this Nigeria team, they somehow fall short. Like, they're not even a bridesmaid. They are like the third bridesmaid. Like, they're the bridesmaid that you invited because you're like, oh, snap. I remember we hung out in college. You want to be my bridesmaid? Like, that's who Nigeria is.
Oh, gosh.
That's who Nigeria is. So, yeah. So, you have that. This is another cool stat. The host nation has not won since 2006, who was Egypt. And the last champion to repeat was 2010, Egypt. By the way, if you're wondering why Egypt has 7 AFCON titles, mostly because of this period, but they won 3 back-to-back in this time period. 3 back-to-back. So, matter of fact, like I was talking about the podcast at African Five-A-Side, they were talking about Mo Salah. And they were talking about how Mo Salah, like a lot of Egyptians, like they look at Mo Salah. It was kind of like it was a cool conversation. It's kind of reminding me of how we're starting to have the conversation now about Christian Pulisic. And I promise this won't be about the U.S. in particular. Like, this is the only American point we'll make. But about how generations are looking at Pulisic career and trying to judge it with like someone like Landon Donovan or Kobe Jones and be like, well, he done this great, but he hasn't done this for that. Those arguments, right, Shanir?
Yeah.
Well, for Mo Salah, they recognize him as being the greatest Egyptian player of all time. But, and this was really interesting, they don't recognize him as the most important to the Egyptian national team history because he hasn't won a title with Egypt yet.
Yeah.
So for them, it's like, all right, cool, you got us to the World Cup. Great. We hadn't been there in a long time. That's awesome. Awesome. You're doing these great things for Liverpool. You're the first real big Arabic, soccer player. That's amazing. But you got to win this AFCON. It is always like, now that's pressure that, us that haven't really looked at AFCON and not previously, now looking at it and be like, oh, snap, like, Can he win AFCON? Can he bring home a title? Because it's been a while since Egypt won one. So that's something interesting there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I always look at those types of situations, and I really it frustrates me because I look at it as you look, for example, at someone like Messi with how long it took for him to win a World Cup with Argentina, how long it took for him to win a Copa America with Argentina. It's like there's 11 guys on the pitch and 7 or 8 guys on the bench. And we need to remember that it takes all 11, including a remaining 7 or 8 on the bench, to actually do something.
Oh, yeah.
100. You know, they say attackers win games, defenses win tournaments. So I just feel that at this point right now, the Egyptian team is not at the level to provide Mohamed Salah with what he gets at Liverpool to make him so successful.
So they're saving. We'll talk about that at the end of the podcast. You got to give the listeners a little bit something. We're already giving away the secret sauce. No, but I agree with you. Like, of course, we know that, but when it comes in terms of like legacy, like Lionel Messi would have been viewed very differently if he hadn't won Copa America, then the World Cup to Maradona. You know, it would always been that looming thing over his head, right?
Yeah.
You know, now there's no doubt Lionel Messi is the greatest Argentine player of all time. And now it's time for Mo Salah to become the greatest Egyptian player of all time. You know?
Yeah. He almost got there last time. Yeah.
He did. Very close to it. But his teammate, penalty kicks. Yeah. So, going to it, I know there's been a lot of discussion. People have been talking about it. Who is the greatest African player of all time? And a lot of people have said Mo Salah. I completely disagree with that because Samuel Eto'o is the greatest African player of all time. There's no arguing about it. He's there. He's won. Mo Salah.
Absolutely.
This man won 2 trebles back-to-back years with 2 different teams. Like, stop playing with my mans. Stop playing. And play 2 different roles. Stop playing with my mans.
Yeah. Isn't he the all-time top scorer for AFCON as well? I think.
Yes, he is with 18 goals.
18 goals in AFCON.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we can't. Samuel Eto'o is the best African player of all time.
You're not touching him. You're not touching him.
No.
You're not touching him. All right. You also have, and look, I think he's won one AFCON, if I'm not mistaken. I think he won 02. I think he was there in 02 when he won it. So he at least has an AFCON title as name as well. God, I'm gonna mess up his name. Rigoberto Song and Ahmad Hassan had the most appearances in the tournament with 8. Now, this is the funny thing, and this is like crazy. Ahmad Hassan for Egypt, Robert Song for Cameroon. Both of their first tournaments was 1996. Their last tournament was 2010. So a stretch from 96 to 2010, these 2 guys who have played in 8 tournaments together. It was like, hey, we start together, we finish together. Charles Gayefe and Hassan Shiahite have the most wins. Shiahite has 3 in a row. He won it with Egypt during that amazing stretch. And Shanir, this is my last pop quiz question to you. Can you name the coach who has the most AFCON wins as a foreign manager?
Like AFCON titles or just wins in the tournament?
Well, like won the tournament.
Okay.
They won it twice with two different teams. Once in 2012 with Zambia, and once in 2015 with Ivory Coast.
Oh, um, the Fox in the Box. Lana.
Yep.
I forgot his first name.
Harvey Renard.
Renard. Ever
The
Renard. Yeah.
tightest shirt ever. The tightest shirt ever worn. He doesn't fit into his shirt. His shirt fits into him. That's actually. But yeah, that's the history of AFCON, man. I mean, like, this is a tournament in which I think we can all agree about. I think the greatest thing about it is the surprise factor of it because we aren't that familiar with it. Like with the Euros, we know because everyone watches European football. It's hard to not escape it because of the media coverage and the coverage around it. Gold Cup, we know a lot about it because we live here in America. You're Haitian, I'm Jamaican. We live and die over the Gold Cup. Even though Americans probably not care about it, we care about it because we're like, we can win.
Yeah,
This is our World Cup.
This is our chance.
It's a chance. Copa America, we know a lot about it because of the Latin Americans and once again the media covers all that stuff. AFCON, to be honest with you, if I feel like we're special and a lot of other people are special because you've listened to the podcast, you probably do. The media coverage is not always there for AFCON. And a lot of the times, like we stated before, the coverage of these teams and this tournament is something that is negative, right? It's kind of like of a hindrance of the European teams or a lot of the stories that, I've heard are when European writers come down there to cover this, they're covered from a standpoint of, well, what are you doing for your next European? It's a lot of European thing. Focus. What are you doing for your next European move? How are you going to be ready for your club side? Not so much what are you getting ready to do for your country and your club. And I'm really excited for the tournament for this aspect also because we might not know a lot about these teams outside of like culture stuff, but on the field stuff, I know it's going to be amazing because I remember the last AFCON and how crazy that was.
I think one thing that we are seeing a lot more of also now is you're getting this is kind of a domino effect of the growth and the competitive nature of the European countries.
Yeah.
Because you look at a lot of the European countries, like the likes of England, Germany, France, the Netherlands, to be on the national team, the competition is increasing every year. When you look, for example, at France, I mean, how do you make that squad? Who are you pushing out of the way to get on that squad? So because of that, you have world-class level players who still aren't good enough to make these country teams like England, Germany, France, who are now going to their diasporic roots and saying, I'm going to go represent my mother's country or my father's country. And with that, you're getting a lot of these African nations that are getting an influx of serious talent. And unfortunately, it's a second choice talent thing, but the level is increasing, and it's kind of a tide. The tide raises all ships because those European teams are generating the European clubs are generating more money, generating more talent pools. Therefore, those nations are generating more competition to make the national team, and you have a lot of. You're not having as much of the situation like the Boateng brothers. You have one who's like, all right, I'm going to go for Germany. The other one's like, all right, I'm going to represent my home country. But now you're having a lot more that are representing their home countries, not only because of, I don't want to bring it up, but let's talk about how immigrants are being treated in Europe right now. That's one reason. And secondly, because it's a lot more competitive to make those teams. So that means the caliber of players that are saying, all right, I'll go and represent Nigeria or Ghana or Cameroon or Cote d'Ivoire. There are a lot higher level players that are deciding to do that. So it just creates a more dynamic tournament of a lot more fireworks, a lot more craziness going on in the tournament with the talent level.
Yeah. And I mean, like, by the way, if you want to learn more about the Boateng brothers, go back in our play log where you can go listen to our episode, the Boateng brothers with Top Soccer. Listen to it. It's great. But with that being said, I had to put in a plug real quick. With that being said, man, I mean, like, we talked about it on nauseum about it, but a lot of African players will try their hand if they do have European citizenship. We'll try their hand in Europe, right? They will try to see, like, hey, can I make the French squad? Can I make England? Can I make the Netherlands team? Belgium, Spain, Portugal. You know, and I think now a lot of that mindset is changing, like you alluded to, because they're like, why would I sit here and bang my head up against the door to crack into the France team when I can go to like Tunisia or Morocco or Ivory Coast and be a guaranteed starter? Me personally, I am a firm believer in go to where you are wanted, get paid, and play.
Yep.
Doesn't matter the level. If you can check mark those three, it's worth it.
Yeah, because it's better than you ending up being a bench warmer. I made the French national team, but I'm never going to see the field. Like, how does that help you?
It doesn't.
As opposed to, okay, I'm going to represent, or I don't know, Cameroon, Senegal, Sierra Leone, whichever, and you're playing every game, and you are a key element to the strategy of the team, to the formation and whatnot.
Right.
It's a no-brainer that you would choose that. So again, going back to what I'm saying, it's like you're looking at a higher level of players that are having that choice now.
Right.
And that's exciting.
So, all right, how we're gonna do this so we're not taking all day talking about one group is we're gonna do 2 minutes per group. We're gonna start off with Group A. All right. So Group A, I'm gonna start the timer. Group A, you have Ivory Coast, Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, and Guinea-Bissau. Did I say that right, Shanair?
Guinea-Bissau.
There you go. See, that's why you're the French speaker on the team. So let's talk about this too. Me personally, like I'm going to be tuned in for that second game day experience between Ivory Coast and Nigeria. Like, that's going to be a fun game.
That'll be the game of that group. I think that group is going to be those two, and that third position will be a toss-up between the two Guinea.
Yeah, the two Guineas. Also, the other thing about this tournament that is cool, well, not cool, if you want to look at it that way, the third place team from each group, the best third place team, I think is the top 4, I believe, move on. Right? So even if you finish third place, it doesn't mean you're automatically eliminated. Ivory Coast has a plethora of talent. They're a team that might kind of underachieve. Same with Nigeria. Like, these are two teams that have historically underachieved at AFCON. Like we mentioned before, Nigeria having the 8 bronzes and whatnot. Any big players in this group? For me personally, I think Victor Osimhen is a standout player. Like,
absolutely,
he is that guy.
I think in this group he is the biggest name. He's the biggest name in this entire group, which is why I feel that there is a possibility that Nigeria is going to top this group, because Ivory Coast have struggled to produce a high-level talent ever since the days of Didier Drogba. They have Kosunu, who plays for Leverkusen, who's a defensive midfielder, which is key because, contrary to popular belief, that's that's the position that makes a team tick. If you need some reassurance, ask Leicester, ask Chelsea with regards to N'Golo Kante. Um, so yeah, I think it's going to be Nigeria number one, and Ivory Coast will be able to score to scoot in at number two.
All right. I think another player you want to watch out for in this group is Odilon Kos-Eunu. Hope I said that right. Probably did it. He plays for Bayer Leverkusen. He's a CDM. That Bayer Leverkusen is flying right now. But I agree, Shanir. I agree with you. I think it's Ivory Coast 1, Nigeria 2, and give me Equatorial Guinea 3. I think it finished the way how it's kind of lined up now. All right, so that's 3 minutes there. We'll move on now to Group B. I gotta remind myself, I gotta stick with this timer because, like I said, we will be 10 minutes onto this. All right, starting timer. All right. So Group B, we have Egypt, Ghana, Cape Verde, and Mozambique. Now, obviously, the name that's on everyone's lips is Mo Salah. We already talked about it at the beginning part of this podcast. Ghana, you have the endless wonder of Andre Ayew. The Ayew brothers are back. We did research before the podcast and found out that, dang, Andre Ayew has been playing for a long time. Didn't realize he was in the 2010 World Cup. He was there in 2014, 2022. This man might never retire. And he's only 34. I swear I thought he was like 38. Cape Verde, they're a team that I'm not too familiar with, but I've heard there's a lot of great talent on this team.
Yeah. So with Cape Verde, you're looking at a former Portuguese colony. So there are a lot of ties to Portugal, and we know Portugal is a strength in on the world stage with regards to the game. So there are a lot of ties with there, and I think they're one of the big dark horses. Cape Verde are going to be one of the big dark horses. There could be a possibility that Cape Verde might they might give Ghana a bloody nose if Ghana's not careful.
I think they get Egypt. I think they stop Egypt from topping the group. That is my big prediction for this group.
Oh,
I think they stop Egypt from topping the group because the big game in this group is Egypt versus Ghana. And I think Egypt's going to spend a lot of energy on Ghana and not be able to knock off Cape Verde. Just saying.
That is a possibility. Because Ghana, yes, they have the AU brothers, and that makes the squad very top heavy. Seem very top heavy, but Ghana has a pretty balanced squad in terms of the talent that they have across the board, going from back to front. So, so they're gonna be a tough nut to crack for Egypt. But I just feel that Cape Verde is very much an unknown, and I think they might have a possibility to do some damage. They're going to be party crashers in this group, definitely.
Yeah. Mozambique and Cape Verde, they might be fighting out for the third place spot. I just think Ghana and Egypt are too top heavy to miss out on this part. But it'd be interesting to see. So we'll see. Oh, Shanir, I didn't ask you. Who do you think wins the group?
This group, even though what you said with regards to Cape Verde, I still think Egypt are gonna get the top.
You think so? Okay.
I think that you're looking at an Egypt that's riding off of making it to the finals in the last AFCON. I think they're going to top the group. And it's only after that we'll see, okay, now Egypt, what can you do in the knockout stages?
Fair enough. All right. So I got, of course, Ghana, Egypt, and Cape Verde. I'll go that way. All right. Next group. Let me start the timer. Where's my timer at? See, this is what happens, folks, with technology. It goes away from you. All right. We have Group C. We have Senegal, Cameroon, Guinea, and Gambia. Senegal is, of course, coming into this World Cup. Sadio Mane, Edouard Mendy. It's a plethora of talent, right? Even so much that I'm losing my train of thought trying to think of all the talent. And it's on this team. Cameroon, on the other hand, I kind of feel like they are the adverse of Senegal, where I feel like a lot of their talent is aging out, and you're getting a lot of new talent starting to come in.
Yeah, talent that hasn't quite been proven yet.
Yeah.
The biggest name they have is Andre Onana, to be honest with you.
And we will not talk about him on this show for various
reasons. Yeah. And going back to one thing we talked about earlier, with regards to one of the players with the most appearances in this competition is actually going to be coaching this team. Rigobert Song is the head coach for Cameroon. So you have that experience, someone who is experienced in this competition and knows what this competition brings. But does he have the tools to actually go far? I mean, you've got Tolo from Seattle Sounders, who didn't have a very bad season at all last year with the Sounders. But I don't know if they have what it takes to really push through and do some serious damage in this competition. They might make it out of this group simply off of the fact that the majority of their players are playing at a decent level around the world. And they have a legend as a head coach. But I think Senegal are winning this group fairly easily.
Yeah, me too. I think Senegal is winning this group. I think Cameroon is going to struggle to get out. Once again, I don't know what it is. The second match day is like the day of which like all the funness is happening because Senegal and Cameroon play each other.
Yep.
On the second match day. It's weird. Conspiracy theory. The second match day is the day that everyone needs to watch. But I think Cameroon struggles to get out this group. I think Guinea might have a good chance of getting out and creeping up and getting that second spot. I think Cameroon might fall into that third place spot for me there personally. And look at us doing that under 3 minutes. We're good at this. You got to make sure to do this for River City 93. Got to make sure. Which, by the way, if you want to hear more about the just random plugins throughout the show. All right. So for Group D, this is who you have. You have Algeria, Burkina Faso. I'm gonna struggle with this one. Martinica?
Mauritania.
I wasn't even close.
Mauritania.
Thank you, sir. Okay. See that once again. That's why I have you on the show. And Angola. So something else I learned today while doing my research for this podcast: Angola is a Portuguese colony. Angola has a lot of players that played in Portugal. Angola is a dark horse. All right, just hear me out. And I just need you to go along with this ride with me. Angola tops the group. But they only have one win. 2 draws and a win.
Are you riding with me?
Are you riding with me?
I can see that. I can see that because, to be honest with you, for me, the team in this group, the country in this group that has the biggest notoriety is obviously Algeria with regards to with Riyad Mahrez and whatnot. But then again, Algeria, it's again a situation of an aging team, and I do feel that aging teams do well in the group stage and peter out in the knockout stages because you have the experience of all of those older players that eventually peters out to running out of gas in the knockout stages. Because they've got Bentaleb, they've got Nouri, who plays for Wolves.
They got a few hitters.
They have some pretty. They got a few guys that have been around the block fairly for a decent amount of time, and they also have some upcoming talent that I guess this is going to be their coming out party, and we'll see what they can provide, what they can produce on the international level. But I don't know. I just feel that Riyad Mahrez is not going to have enough around him to affect things as much, because I think Riyad Mahrez is a player who plays well off of other players. He much like Lionel Messi, especially coming off the right side when he's on the right wing, he uses the runs of other players to create a path for himself when he has the ball at his feet. I don't think there's anybody else on this squad that is going to spell enough fear in defenses for them to divide their attention away from him. So I think I can agree with you with Angola. I mean, they're a solid squad. Nothing absolutely crazy in terms of stars, but just a solid group of players.
Yeah. And look, this is another way from Martinian because I didn't know how to pronounce their name. I don't think they have the firepower to get out this group. Burkina Faso, I think Burkina Faso has enough to finish third place. If Torre was a little bit more healthier, I might have put him in second, but I don't know. So that's why I got him in third. Obviously, we went over time there in that group, but that's okay. Everyone, we're still working out the kinks. We're getting ready for the national team, all right? Getting our warm-ups in. Moving on to Group E. All right. Now, this is a group which I'm deeming this is the chaos group. This is the group where it is going to get topsy-turvy. You have Tunisia, Mali, South Africa, and Namibia. And the South African, so once again, go check out African Five-A-Side. It's a great podcast. Listen to them. They talked about South Africa. And this is a team in which they're not calling in a lot of big-name talent. They're calling in a lot of guys from the Premier League. Like, not Premier League. Well, their Premier League in South Africa. And look, majority of this team is built out of the Sundown FC, who's gone on to win CAF, which is their version of the Champions League and the African club title and all that stuff. And they love to play with the ball at their feet, but it's kind of like the same thing. They were talking about on the show about how in AFCON, sometimes it's bad to be a technical player, and that might hinder South Africa. I think they're a very talented team. I think this is a team where you can see a lot of talent get pulled from in the next transfer window. Don't know if they finish in the top of their group. I have Tunisia. Let me take that back. I have Mali finishing first. Tunisia finishes second. South Africa third, and then Namibia.
Yeah, I think out of these four clubs, Namibia is going to be the one that's going to
They're here. They're here for fun.
Yeah, they're here to be here.
Yeah.
But I think I can agree with that. I think between Tunisia and South Africa, it's going to be a battle between second and third for those two. Yeah. Because like you said, with regards to South Africa, I honestly think South Africa is going to be a dark horse simply because of the fact that a majority of the team is coming from one club. And also the head coach, Hugo Broos, has a lot to prove. He's coming with a chip on his shoulder. He's coming into this tournament trying to prove something with this team. So they're gonna push to make sure they make it out of that group. Is it gonna be in second or third? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, we didn't say it. I forgot the most. I think the match that you need to watch in the group previously we talked about in Group D, is probably the last group day where you have Angola playing Burkina Faso and then Algeria playing Martinica. Just because that's going to determine who gets out of the group. And I think that's very much the same thing in this group as well. I think the last match day is going to determine the order of this group. Like, there's a situation we could walk into where Mali's 1, Tunisia is 3, South Africa's 2, and end the day with all over the place and flip-flop. And one of these three teams actually miss out, you know?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that game day is an opportunity for Namibia either to be kingmaker or king killer.
Yeah.
Depending on how they play in that last game. They can really affect how the table looks, even though I don't think they're gonna benefit from it at all in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. I'm definitely going to be checking out that state. Also, because that is the week of my birthday. So I definitely will be watching that.
Nice.
Group F, man. We got Morocco, DR Congo, Zambia, and Tunisia. This group, I'm going to be real with you. I think everyone is going to say Morocco's getting out of this group. So then you kind of look at it, it's kind of a toss-up between DR Congo, Zambia, and Tunisia. Who makes it out of this? If I had to pick, I'm going to go Morocco, DR Congo, Tunisia, Zambia. I think Zambia misses out. I think Tunisia gets the third place based on draws. I think all DR Congo need to do to get second place, I think, is just win one game. Beat Zambia or beat Tunisia, you're in second place.
That's true. I don't know. I have a feeling Zambia has what it takes to battle for that third spot.
You think so?
And put a little bit of pressure on Congo. But I think it's going to be Morocco, Congo. I actually think Zambia is going to get third, and I think Tanzania is going to be the one that's going to be. I think they're the weakest link in this group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about this Morocco squad that is so fascinating is because this is going to be a very different tournament than the World Cup, in which the World Cup, they were able to play tight, playing a 4-2-3-1, very tight, pretty much give the ball to the opposing team, counter at pace, put crosses into the box. Like, I still remember El Nassiri jumping up over the Portuguese backline to put a header in. Still remember that. But in this group, it's going to be very different. They're going to have the majority of the ball. Like, DR Congo, Zambia, and Tunisia are going to be like, you have the ball, you have 80% possession, and you figure out how to beat us in the low block, and we'll play for this draw. Like, that's what Morocco's going to encounter. You can't go into this thinking about they're going to be the underdog. It's not happening.
Yeah, and another thing is one of their top players is actually coming off of an injury. I don't know if he's going to take part in the Mazraoui, who coming out from Bayern with an injury. I don't know how much of an effect he'll have, and he's a key player. Of course, they have Amrabat. They have Hakim Ziyech. And that's where you're looking at that's where I think the situation of Morocco is going to be a situation of more success than anything, with especially during the group stages, is that they have a tendency to be able to hang on to the ball, but they have the caliber of players like Hakim Ziyech and Amrabat, who can actually kind of take games by the scruff of the neck if they have to.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Morocco might pull a repeat of what they did in the World Cup of going far. I'm really interested to see how Morocco plays in this tournament, because this is a different kettle of fish than the World Cup. It's not the same type of tournament. It's not, you can't play in the World Cup the way you play in AFCON.
Nope.
And vice versa.
Like, I forget. Remember on the podcast, once again, I'm going to reference the podcast I was listening to because it's such a great podcast. They mentioned it. It was just like, if you play technical, you will lose. So pretty much, whoever plays the roughest brand of soccer wins. Not saying technical soccer doesn't win you this, but I get their point. Like, you can't walk into this all pretty. You got to learn how to play AFCON. It's pretty much like how to play CONCACAF. So Shanair,
yeah.
Let me ask you this before we wrap up: who wins AFCON? Who wins AFCON?
That's tough. That's a tough one for me.
Remember this fact, because I'm gonna throw this out there to you again. So in case you remember this, where is it? Since 2006, no host nation has won. So Ivory Coast, and no champion has repeated since 2010, and that's Senegal.
To be honest with you, I don't see Senegal repeating. I see them going deep in the competition, but I do not see them repeating. They have a solid goalkeeper. They have some solid defenders, but I do not see them repeating. The likes of Sadio Mane is getting up there in terms of years. He's not that old. He's only 31, but there's a lot of mileage on those legs. And we need to remember that the last time, during the last AFCON, he's fresh out of, I think he's just arrived at the, no, he's still at Liverpool. He's on a high. He's playing extremely well at Liverpool alongside Mohamed Salah and the Brazilian Firmino.
Firmino.
But this is going to be a tough one. Nicholas Jackson is probably the biggest high profile name on this squad, and that's saying something. With Sadio Mane on the team, it shows how much Sadio Mane has come down ever since going to Bayern. Nicholas Jackson has done a decent job at Chelsea. I wouldn't say he's been lights out at Chelsea. Well, I don't think anyone's been lights out at Chelsea, to be honest with you, but that's a different conversation. So I don't see Senegal doing a repeat. Egypt, I think they still do have a lot of the same names that were there that brought them all the way to the finals last time. There is that possibility. Mohamed El Neni has not played that much at Arsenal this past season, so there may be an issue of lack of playing time, lack of practice. And this is a tough one. This is a really tough one.
Who you got, Shanair?
I know that like they said on that podcast that you were talking about, that you don't win AFCON if you play technical. But I don't know, the team that looks like it has the least weaknesses is Morocco. And I think in terms of tournaments, it's not the team that has the most strength. It's the team that has the least weaknesses that wins. So, yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Morocco.
All right, folks, I'm gonna make this real easy for you. With a dissertation about who you picking, I'm gonna go real easy for you. I got Senegal. And I got Senegal for this one reason. Why? They have the most depth. They have the most depth out of everyone in the tournament at key spots. Every other big team that you want to talk about, Morocco, Ivory Coast, Senegal, Cameroon, Algeria. There's some part of the team that's weaker than the others that isn't able to hold up to the rest. You look at the Senegal team. I mean, Edward Mendy's a more than decent goalkeeper. He's won a Champions League. Koulibaly. You also have Issa Ghana Gay. I always mess his name up. Papa Gay, Papa Sarr. The forwards, you got Sadio Mane, Ismail Sarr. Like, you have Nicholas Jackson. You have more than enough talent and depth to make it to the final and win it. So I'm going Senegal. Again, to repeat for the first time since 2010 since Egypt.
All right, I can see your argument. My biggest thing is Senegal like to play with a front three. So if they play with a front three, those three guys you just named, Ismail Assar, Jackson, and Mane are most likely starting.
Yeah.
Apart from Iliman, who else is coming in if one of those guys needs to come off? Because I don't see Sadio Mane being able to push through this entire competition playing every minute because he does not have the legs he had before. So who's coming in? Because the other guys that they have is a big drop off from those top three.
I just said it, Simba. From he's at loan at Rangers.
That's the thing. Like, but the thing is, when I look at Simba,
the thing about it is, you're not replacing what Mane gives you. You're not replacing that.
You're not. Absolutely not.
But it's about the other parts around him that can pick up and do other things, right? Like if you were to take Salah off of Egypt attacking wise will fall apart. We've seen it
completely. Absolutely, right. Yes.
If you take Ghana and take Kudus off of that team, midfield breaks down, right? Morocco, if you take Amrabat out of that midfield, they break down. It's just pieces and parts like that. I just think Senegal has the most parts that if you lose Mane to an injury in this tournament, or if Nicholas Jackson doesn't get you goals, you have someone else that can come in and do a job for you. Defensively, same thing. So that's where I'm kind of going to with it. But Chenier, we've done this for an hour, and I think it's time we wrap up the podcast.
This is
anything you want to say before we wrap up, sir?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, like, this is really gonna be a toss up for me. I'm saying Morocco because I'm thinking of 2006, Italy wins the World Cup with no like big name stars on the team, just a solid squad. I can see that happening, but to be honest with you, I'm gonna be 100% with you. This is a toss up. Absolute toss-up. This is going to be interesting.
And I think that's going to make for a compelling tournament. Listeners, make sure that you tweet us who you think is going to win AFCON. We'd love to hear from you. Tell us who you think is going to win AFCON, who's going to be the standout player of the tournament, who's going to win the tournament, who's going to be the dark horse, who's going to be the biggest disappointment. What is going to be the biggest upset? Let us know. We want to hear from you. So with that being said, as always, as fans, without you, we couldn't do this podcast. So thank you as always. And with that being said, for Chenier and myself, remember, support AFCON, watch AFCON, and enjoy it. because the day of the final, February 11th, is the same day of the Super Bowl. So if you can watch the Super Bowl, you can watch the AFCON final. Enjoy, folks.